Close your eyes. Take a slow breath in and let it go. Tonight, you are not yourself. Tonight, you are something older, something stronger. Tonight, you are Henry, a man who met the right person at the wrong time and the right time all at once, who built a life with his hands and his words and his whole self, and then watched that life become something he did not know how to hold. He did not leave because he stopped loving her. He left because he did not know how to stay. The mountains of Wyoming were not a destination. They were an answer to a question he could not stop asking. You see her from across the bar. She is talking to someone else. She uses her hands when she speaks, moving them through the air like she is shaping something. Like the words alone are not enough. You watch her for a moment before you have decided to watch her. Your friend says something beside you. You do not hear it. Her name is Julia. You learn this later, after you have crossed the room, after you have said something you immediately regret, after she has looked at you with the particular expression of someone deciding whether you are worth their time. She decides yes. You are never entirely sure why. You talk until the bar closes. The cold outside is the kind of cold that makes cities feel small and honest. You walk beside her because she asks you to. Your hands are in your pockets. Hers are not. She is still talking, still shaping things out of the dark air between you. She is studying evolutionary biology at CU Boulder. She explains what that means, and you listen with everything you have because you want to understand her world. You tell her you work in a bookshop. She says that is the right answer. You are still not sure what she meant by that. You think about it sometimes. You call her 4 days later. You see her the day after that, and the day after that, and after that the days stop being things you count. You learn her slowly, the way you learn a place you want to keep. The way she holds her coffee mug with both hands wrapped around it. The face she makes when something surprises her. The specific sound of her laugh when something is genuinely funny versus when she is being polite. You learn the difference early on, and it matters. She laughs at her own jokes before she finishes telling them. You love this about her more than you have words for. You fall in love with her the way weather changes. You do not notice it happening. And then one morning you step outside and everything is different. You get a dog from the pound. He is enormous and soft and chronically confused about the world. You both agree to name him Bucket without discussing it first, which feels like evidence of something. He sleeps between you in the bed and takes up most of it. Neither of you minds. You get married on a Saturday in October. It rains. Julia says this is good luck. You tell her you are not sure you believe in luck. She says you believe in enough other things. You say yes, and you mean every part of it. The offer from Yale comes on a Tuesday. You are in the kitchen when she tells you. New Haven, Connecticut. A real position. Tenure track. Everything she has worked toward. She watches you across the table with her hands wrapped around her coffee mug, and she waits. You tell her to take it. You both pack. You move east together. Connecticut in November is gray and cold and very different from Colorado, and it becomes home because she is in it, and that is enough. The first sign is small. She loses a word mid-sentence, stands there with her hands still for once, reaching for it, the word not coming. Then it comes, and she laughs it off, and you laugh with her. Then it happens again. Then more often. Then the doctors run tests. Then more tests. Then they sit you both down under bright fluorescent light, and they use careful language. And the careful language means this: early onset dementia. She is 40 years old. You hear the words, and something inside you rearranges. Not breaks, rearranges. Like furniture moved in a dark room, everything is still there. Nothing is gone, but the shape of the space is different now, and you keep walking into things. Julia holds your hand while the doctor speaks. Her grip is steady, steadier than yours. You learn the shape of it slowly, because it comes slowly. Some days she is entirely herself, sharp and precise, and watching the world with the specific attention that made you cross a room toward her in a bar 15 years ago. She makes you laugh. She finishes your sentences. She draws at the kitchen table with her coffee going cold beside her, and she is so completely herself that you almost forget the other days. Then the other days come. You start drinking more than you should. The bookshop notices. Julia notices on her good days. Bucket sleeps at the foot of the bed now. The space between you at night fills with something that does not have a name. Her family comes from Australia. They are kind. They use voices you have heard before, the voices people use when they are trying very hard not to say the real thing. They look at you the way people look at someone who is drowning slowly enough that no one has decided to call it drowning yet. They ask if she can come back with them. Back to her mother, her sister, the people who knew her before you did. More hands, more care. You go for a long walk. The city moves around you without noticing. Bare trees, gray sky, other people's dogs on other people's leashes. You walk until your feet are cold through your shoes. You walk until the question stops feeling like a question and starts feeling like the answer you already know. When you come back, you say yes. You pack her things carefully. She is herself that day, entirely, completely herself. And you do not know if that makes it easier or harder. It is both at once. She tells you she loves you. You stand at the door and watch the car until it turns the corner. Then it is gone. Then you are standing at the door alone in the cold, and the house behind you is full of her things, but she is not in it. And that is a new kind of quiet that you have not been in before. You go inside. You close the door. The winter passes. You drink. You work. You sit in the apartment that still smells like her. You call her sometimes when it is a good day, and she laughs and asks about Bucket. You tell her Bucket is fine. Bucket is not fine. Bucket knows something is wrong, and he waits by the door most evenings looking at it. One morning in February, you find a notice pinned to the board in the coffee shop. Yellow paper. The U.S. Forest Service. Shoshone National Forest, Wyoming. Fire lookout positions. Summer season. You read it once. You fold it and put it in your pocket. You read it again on the walk home. You call the number 3 days later. You fill out the forms. You send them back. In April, an envelope comes. 2 Forks Lookout. Shoshone National Forest. Report no later than May 1. You pack 1 bag. Deliberately 1 bag. More than one would mean you are staying too long, and you cannot think about staying too long. You leave Bucket with your neighbor, who has always liked him more than she lets on. You drive west out of Connecticut, and then west some more, and the cities stop, and the sky gets bigger with every hour, and the land opens up into something old and unhurried. You drive until Wyoming. Day 1, May 1, 1989. Your pack is heavier than you planned. You always pack too much. Julia used to tell you that. She would stand at the door with one hand on her hip and watch you try to close your bag. You smile at that for a moment. Then you stop smiling. The trail begins at the service road, and the forest takes you in. Pine, spruce, your boots on packed earth finding a rhythm. The air is different here. Not just clean, something older than clean. Something that has been here longer than the words you would use to describe it. You breathe it in, and something in your chest does a thing it has not done in a long time. It loosens, just slightly, just enough to feel. The trail climbs through switchbacks, gaining elevation in long, steady grades. Heat builds in the backs of your legs, in your shoulders. The sky appears and disappears between the canopy. When it shows, it is a very specific blue, the kind that only exists above a certain altitude. You take out the map. One of those old Forest Service maps, hand-drawn in places, pencil fading on some of the trails. It never folds back the right way. You shove it in your pocket and keep moving. Below you somewhere, out of sight, a creek moves over rocks. You hear it for a while. Then the trail bends and the sound is gone. The radio on your hip crackles. A voice, clear and unhurried. The voice of someone who has been alone in the forest long enough that talking into a radio is just how conversation works. She says, "You must be the new Two Forks." You stop walking. You take the radio off your belt. It is heavier than it looks. You say, "That's me." Your voice sounds strange out here. Too much echo. The trees take it and give it back slightly wrong. She says her name is Delilah. She is up at Thoroughfare Lookout to your north. She has been here 3 summers. She says this one looks like it is going to be interesting. The way she says interesting has a smile behind it. The kind of smile that is also a warning. You ask what interesting means out here. She says, "You're about to find out." The tower comes through the trees. You stop and look at it. Wood and glass, 40 feet off the ground on stilts. A cabin reached by a staircase that switchbacks up the outside of the structure. A porch, shuttered windows, the flag unmounted. It is yours for the summer. Yours. The word catches somewhere in your chest. You have not thought of anything as yours for a long time. The apartment in New Haven stopped feeling that way. The bookshop never quite did. But this tower, this specific small structure in this specific forest, is yours for these months. You start climbing the stairs. Inside, a cot, a desk, a wood stove, binoculars on a hook. The alidade at the center of the room, the big round sighting map for locating fires. The smell of wood and dust, and something older than both. Decades of summers, one on top of the other. You find the generator on the back wall. A switch and a fuel gauge and a starter cord. You pull it. The machine coughs once, then catches. A low hum moves through the floor of the tower. The lights come on. The radio on the desk blinks once and holds steady. You set your pack on the cot. You turn in a slow circle and look out each face of windows. Mountains, forest, distance, ridgeline after ridgeline softening into blue, and then into nothing, and then into sky. You stand at the window for a long moment without moving. You have never seen anything so empty in your life. The emptiness is exactly what you came for. Delilah comes back on the radio. She asks if you found the place all right. You tell her you did. She says good, because she would have felt bad sending someone up the wrong mountain. You tell her you are not entirely sure that is true. She laughs. It is a real laugh, the kind that means she is actually listening. She says there is something she needs you to check. Fireworks at Jonesy Lake, about a mile northeast of your position. Illegal in the park. She would go herself, but her truck is out of commission, and your legs are newer than hers. Her words. She says them without any apology. You ask how much newer. She says, significantly. You take your pack back off the cot. The trail to Jonesy Lake drops through a meadow and into a hollow where the light changes. Softer, greener. The air thicker with moisture from the creek below. Your feet find the path without having to think about it. Before the lake, you find a cache box bolted to a post in the trees. Cache 306. Inside, a coiled rope, a granola bar, a first aid kit. You take the rope. The campsite is just off the trail. Fireworks, bonfire ring, 2 backpacks, a bottle of whiskey, beer cans scattered in the dirt. You can smell the smoke. Someone was here very recently. You stand in the campsite for a moment. You pick up the fireworks. Further along the path, before the lake opens up, you find clothes. Scattered across the trail and into the brush on both sides. A shirt, a pair of jeans. Things dropped or thrown without much care for where they landed. You stop and look at them. You radio Delilah. She asks if they are children's clothes. You tell her no. She is quiet for a moment, and then she says, well, keep moving. You keep moving. You hear them before you see them. Voices, then laughter. The particular kind of sound that people make when they think no one is around. You follow it around the bend to the shore of Jonesy Lake. 2 girls, teenagers, 16, maybe 17, in the shallows at the edge of the lake. They see you at the same moment you see them, and the laughter stops. You tell them the fireworks are illegal in a national forest. The taller one looks at you. She says, we don't know what you're talking about. You tell her you found the campsite. You tell her you heard the fireworks. She holds your gaze with the specific expression of a teenager who has decided that boredom is the correct response to authority. She says, we don't know what you're talking about. Her friend says nothing. She looks at the water. You radio Delilah. 2 girls, denying everything. Delilah says something about teenagers that is unkind and probably right. You leave the girls at the lake. You are walking back when you find the cave, an entrance in the rock face, set back from the trail, half hidden by brush that has grown across the opening. The stone around it is old and stained dark, but the lock on the iron gate is new, completely new, incongruous against the old rock. No sign, nothing on the trail map. You try the gate. It does not move. You radio Delilah. She has never seen any gate there before. She does not know what it is. She tells you to mark it on the map. You mark it. You stand there a moment longer than you need to. Then you look up. The figure is on the ridge above you, high up where the rock breaks out above the tree line. A flashlight in hand, the beam pointed down the slope, directly at you. Standing completely still, You cannot make out a face or clothes or any specific detail, just the fact of a person. Still, the light finding you. You raise one hand. The figure does not move. You watch it for a long moment. The distance is too great for any detail, too great to know if it is looking at you specifically or at the forest below it in general. But something in the quality of the stillness tells you it is you, that it has been you the entire time. You look away for 1 second to check the trail behind you. When you look back, the ridge is empty. Nothing, no movement, no sound. You radio Delilah. She says it is probably a hiker. You tell her it did not feel like a hiker. She asks what it felt like. You stand in the quiet of the trail and try to find the right word. You cannot find it. She says, "Go back to the tower, Henry." You go back to the tower. The light has changed. The late afternoon has gone copper and long, throwing shadows out from every tree in the same direction. It is beautiful in the way Wyoming is beautiful, without asking you to notice, without any interest in whether you do. You climb the stairs. You push open the door. The tower is wrong. You know it before you can say what is different. The weight of the space. The way things have been moved. One of the windows is smashed, glass on the floor, a clean break, the cold air coming through the gap. Drawers pulled out and pushed back, not quite right. The desk chair flipped onto its side. Your pack moved from where you set it on the cot. The typewriter that was on the desk is on the floor beside the stairs, face down on the boards. Somebody was here. Somebody was careful about it. You stand in the center of the room. Your heartbeat is steady. You look at every corner. Nobody here now. Just the evidence of someone having been. You pick up the typewriter. You set it back on the desk. You radio Delilah. She goes quiet for a moment when you tell her. She says, "That's not nothing." You say no. She asks if anything is missing. You look around. Nothing taken, just touched, just examined. She says, "Lock the door tonight." You tell her the lock is simple, and that whoever did this already had a way in. She says she knows. She tells you to lock it anyway. You tell her you will. She says, "First day and someone's already been through your things. You're really settling in out there." There is something in her voice beneath the joke. Not quite worry. Something that lives just next to it. You notice it. You do not say anything about it. She says good night. You say good night. You lock the door. The last light drains out of the sky. You stand at the west window and watch it go. Orange to red to purple to nothing. The stars come up slowly and then all at once. The forest below is dark in every direction, dense and patient. The kind of dark that has been here for 10,000 years and will be here for 10,000 more. Somewhere out there in that dark, something moved through your space, looked through what you brought, learned something about who you are from what you carry. You lie down on the cot. The wood of the tower settles around you. The night air comes in cold through the gap beneath the window. You think about Julia for a moment. The way she held your hand in the doctor's office. How steady she was. How she was the one comforting you when she was the one who needed it. You let that thought go. You look at the ceiling. The stars move slowly on the other side of the glass, indifferent and beautiful. Below you, the forest breathes, and somewhere in it, something knows you are here. The forest breathes outside the tower. That is the last thing you remember before your eyes close. Day 2, May 2, 1989. The light comes in through the east windows first. Gray before gold. The kind of light that arrives before it decides what kind of day it will be. You lie still for a moment on the cot. Your body takes its time remembering where you are. The small sounds of the tower around you, wood settling, wind against the glass, the specific quiet of a place that has no traffic underneath it. Your eyes find the smashed window. The glass is still on the floor. You got in last night and you locked the door and you looked at the broken window for a long time and then you lay down. You meant to deal with it today. You sit up, you stand. You go to the window and look out. The forest below is silver green in the early light, mist in the low places. Somewhere a bird you do not know the name of is already doing its job. You have been here one day, and you do not know the names of the birds yet. Your boots are by the door where you left them. The radio crackles before you have had coffee. You have not had coffee yet, because you found last night that someone has taken the coffee from the supply box. You are going to have feelings about this later, when you are less tired. Delilah says, "Good morning, 2 forks." You say, "It's morning." She says there is a communications line down somewhere north of your position. Old utility line runs between 2 relay stations. It went silent last night. She needs you to follow it and find where the break is. You ask if this is standard. She says lines go down all the time. Wind, weather, animals, probably nothing. The word probably is doing a lot of work in that sentence. You take your pack, you take the map, you take the radio. The trail north takes you through timber that is older and denser than yesterday's route. The trees here are thick-trunked and close together, the canopy almost solid above you. The light comes through in pieces. The utility line runs alongside the trail, old wooden poles, some of them leaning, the cables strung between them with varying degrees of confidence. You follow it the way you follow any line. One pole to the next. One pole to the next. Then you notice the beer cans. Not one or two. A trail of them. Kicked to the sides of the path, some crushed, some still whole, stretching ahead of you through the trees in roughly the direction the line runs. Someone walked this way recently and was not particularly careful about what they left behind. You radio Delilah. You tell her about the cans. She says, follow them. The trail climbs. The poles climb with it. The cable runs uphill and then over a ridge. And then the last pole stands at the top of the rise, and the cable hangs loose from it. You stop. The cable has been cut, not worn through, not pulled apart by weather or an animal. Cut. The end of it is clean, the kind of clean that only comes from something with a blade. You crouch down and look at it. You pick up the end of the cable and feel the cut edge. Deliberate, intentional. On the rock beside the pole, there is something else. A piece of clothing. An item of underwear. White, with the words "Go to hell" written on it in thick black marker, clear enough to read from 2 feet away. You radio Delilah. She is quiet for exactly 1 second, and then she laughs. It is not a happy laugh. It is the laugh of someone who has been told something they already suspected. She says, "Our friends from yesterday." You say, apparently. She says, "They cut the line themselves, or they helped someone cut it." You stand at the top of the ridge with the cut cable in one hand and the radio in the other. The forest stretches away from you in every direction. Somewhere in it, 2 teenage girls are apparently angry and operational. You follow the trash. The beer cans lead you further along the ridge and then down through a gully. You follow them because there is nothing else to follow, and because the alternative is going back to the tower and saying, "I found a cut wire and some underwear," which does not feel like enough. You are moving through a section of trail between 2 outcrops of rock when you see it. A backpack. On the ground, half buried in old leaves, tucked against the base of one of the outcrops as if it slid there and was forgotten. Not a new pack. Old. The fabric faded and dirty, the stitching going at the corners. You crouch down beside it. The name tag is still attached to the handle. Black marker on a white card inside a plastic sleeve. The writing is a child's handwriting. Careful, slightly uneven. The letters of someone who was still learning how their name worked on paper. BRAN, GOODWIN. You hold the bag for a moment. You open it. Inside, a disposable camera, old, partially used. The counter shows several frames remaining. And a rope, coiled carefully, the kind used for climbing. Both sitting in the bottom of the bag, as if they have been there a very long time. You radio Delilah. You tell her about the backpack. You tell her the name on the tag. She goes quiet, not the quiet of someone thinking, the quiet of someone who already knows something and is deciding what to do with it. You wait. She says, leave it where you found it. Mark it on the map. You ask if she knows who Brian Goodwin is. She says, just mark it, Henry. You mark it. You put the backpack back where you found it. You look at it for a moment longer. A child's name in a child's handwriting, sitting in the forest a long way from anywhere a child would normally leave their things. You keep moving. Ahead of you, thin and pale against the sky above the tree line, a thread of smoke. Not much. The kind of smoke that means a fire has been burning for a while and is almost done. You change direction toward it. The trail bends and the terrain drops, and you follow the smoke down toward 5 Mile Creek. You smell it before you see it. Wood ash and something else underneath. The particular smell of a place where people have been and then are not. Then the campsite opens up in front of you. You stop at the edge of it. For a moment, you just look. The tent is shredded. Not collapsed, shredded. The fabric torn open in long strips, as if something came through the walls from outside. The sleeping bags are pulled out and scattered, one of them half in the creek. 2 camp chairs overturned. Beer cases broken apart, cans across the ground. Clothes, the girls' clothes, pulled out of bags and thrown across the site without any order or purpose. The fire is cold. Whatever burned here burned a while ago. You walk through it slowly. Everything they had is here. Both backpacks, still with their things inside, still with the weight of a summer trip in them. Food, a camera, magazines, their pages lifting slightly in the breeze off the creek. All of it still here, still present, still exactly the belongings of 2 people who expected to come back. But the girls are not here. You call out. Your voice travels through the trees, and the trees give it back. Nothing else. You check the creek bank. You check the tree line. You walk the perimeter of the campsite in a full circle. No sign of them. No footprints leaving in any clear direction. Just the site itself, destroyed and abandoned and still. Something tightens in your chest. You do not name it. You radio Delilah. She asks what you found. You tell her the tent, the sleeping bags, the clothes scattered, everything still here. The girls not. She is quiet for a while. Then she says, they could have left on their own. Kids do that. They get spooked and they leave and they forget they had stuff. You say they left everything. She says, yeah. You say the tent is shredded. She says, yeah. Neither of you says what is sitting between those words. You do not say it because saying it changes something. Because yesterday morning, those girls were an annoyance, fireworks, a cut line, underwear with a message on it. That was one kind of problem. This is a different kind of problem. Delilah says, "Come back to the tower. There's nothing more you can do out there today." You look at the ruined campsite one more time. The cold fire, the scattered sleeping bags, the camera still sitting in one of the open packs, waiting for someone to come back for it. You say, "All right." You leave. The forest is the same forest it was this morning. Same trees, same trail, same light coming through the canopy in the same pieces. But you move through it differently now. The same way you moved through rooms differently after the doctor's appointment. Not because anything has changed in the trees, because something has changed in the way you are reading them. You notice the gaps between the trunks more, the places where the light stops and the shadow starts, the sections of trail where the trees press close on both sides and you can only see a few feet ahead. You notice these things. You keep walking. You sit on the porch of the tower as the light goes. Delilah comes on the radio around dusk. She asks if you're all right. You tell her you're fine. She says you don't have to be fine. You say you know. She lets it sit. Then she asks what you actually did back home before this. You tell her. Bookshop. New Haven. She asks if you liked it. You say you did for a while. She asks what changed. You say a lot of things changed. She does not push it. She tells you she has been doing this for 3 summers because it turns out she is good at being alone and bad at being around people for extended periods. She says this the way you say things that are true, but that you are not sure are compliments. You tell her you understand that. She says, "I bet you do." The forest goes dark. The stars come out. She says good night, 2 forks. You say good night, thoroughfare. The summer settles in around you. Days go by the way days go when there is no calendar and no one expecting you anywhere. You learn the rhythms of the forest and the tower, the light in the morning, the heat that builds by midday, the way the shadows move across the valley below your windows through the afternoon, the specific color of the sky just before the sun clears the eastern ridge. You check your map. You walk your sector. You watch for smoke. Delilah is on the radio. She is always on the radio. You start to look forward to it in the way you look forward to things you have not admitted you are looking forward to. Her voice is the most consistent thing in your day. Dry and unhurried and quick in a way that catches you off guard. She knows this forest better than anyone, and she shares that knowledge in pieces, the way she shares most things, a little at a time, half smiling at what she does not say. She knows about the trees. She knows about the weather. She knows the names of the birds. You learn the names of the birds. Somewhere in the middle of a night, you fall asleep holding the radio. You do not know this has happened until Delilah's voice comes through it in the morning, bright and already laughing, saying, "Two forks, your snoring cleared a hawk off my railing." You tell her you do not snore. She says the hawk disagrees. You sit up on the cot with the radio in your hand, and the morning light coming in gold through the east windows, and something in your chest is lighter than it has been in a long time. You notice it. You let it be what it is. The girls have not been found. You have both checked the area twice. No sign of them. The campsite sits ruined and empty down by 5 Mile Creek, the tent still shredded, the sleeping bag still half in the creek, the camera still in the open pack. The name Brian Goodwin stays somewhere in the back of your mind. A door you have not tried yet. A child's backpack sitting in the forest on the side of a rock, waiting. The forest keeps its secrets the way forests do. Patient, unhurried, all the time in the world. Patient, unhurried, all the time in the world. And you keep yours. The weeks of June come and go, the way weeks come and go when you are not counting them. The tower becomes the whole world. Not in a bad way. In the way that places become the whole world when you stop expecting anywhere else to replace them. You know the specific creak of the second step on the stairs. You know the way the alidade catches the morning light. You know which window sticks in the heat, and which one you have to lift slightly before it gives. You know Delilah's voice better than you know the sound of your own footsteps. This is not something you think about directly. It is just true. She asks you one morning what you had for breakfast. You tell her granola and a tin of something that was supposed to be soup. She says that sounds like suffering dressed up as food. You tell her it was mostly fine. She says fine is the word people use when they have given up. You laugh. The sound of it surprises you a little. You cannot remember the last time you laughed at something outside your own head. She says, there it is. You say, what? She says, I've been wondering if you had that in you. On the 33rd day you hike north. Delilah has arranged a supply drop at cache 241. You have been out of certain things for a week. Real coffee, actual food, batteries for the flashlight. The morning is cool, and the forest is at its best in the early hours, before the heat builds and the air goes still. You find the cache on the north slope of the ridge. The lid has a map on it, detailed, showing parts of the terrain that your own map does not. You fold it and put it in your pack with the supplies. Delilah asks if you got everything. You tell her there is a coffee problem She says, explain. You tell her the coffee in the cache does not deserve to be called coffee. She says she cannot be held responsible for the procurement decisions of the United States Forest Service. You tell her that feels like a dodge. She says it absolutely is. You start walking home through the trees with your full pack, and she stays on the radio, and the conversation takes up most of the hike back. By the time the tower comes through the tree line, you have stopped noticing that talking to her is something you chose to do. It is just what the silence fills with now. On the hike back, you spot smoke on a ridge to the east, thin and white. Not nothing, not an emergency. You note the bearing and the location on the map. You give it a name the way fire lookouts do, so it becomes something trackable, something real. Delilah logs it on her end. It turns out to be nothing serious, but the act of naming it, of watching it carefully, and giving it a word feels like the right kind of work, the kind that earns its place in the day. There is a day, you do not remember which day, when you notice the ring on your desk. You did not put it there consciously. Or if you did, the decision happened somewhere below the level of things you name. It is just there, small and gold in the afternoon light coming through the east window. You look at it for a while. Then you go back to the alidade and keep watch. The ring stays on the desk. You do not move it back. You do not move it further away. You leave it where it is, the way you leave certain thoughts where they land, not dwelling, not dismissing, just letting them sit in the space they chose. Delilah cannot see it. But there are moments in the radio conversations when something she says touches close to it, and you go quiet for half a breath, and she lets that half a breath pass without filling it. She is good at that, knowing where the edges of things are. It happens on a night in late June. You have been on the radio with Delilah until the conversation wound down naturally, the way it does when both of you have said enough and the silence between transmissions gets comfortable. You set the radio on the cot beside you. You mean to put it back on the desk. You do not put it back on the desk. You fall asleep with it next to your shoulder, somewhere in the middle of the night. No light through the windows. The forest entirely dark and entirely quiet. You say her name. Julia. Just that. One word into the dark of the tower. The radio is still on. In the morning, Delilah's voice comes through as you are lacing your boots. She says, "Good morning." You say, "Morning." She says, "Who is Julia?" The way she says it is careful, not accusing, not light either, just careful. The voice of someone who has decided to ask a direct question because they have been sitting on it all night, and it is the only way forward. You stop lacing your boot. You sit there on the edge of the cot with one boot unlaced and the radio in your hand, and the morning coming in through the east windows. You stay very still for a moment. Then you tell her all of it. Julia, the bar in Boulder, the bookshop, the dog named Bucket, Yale, Connecticut, the move east, and then the other part, the doctors, the careful language, the furniture moved in a dark room, the family from Australia, the car turning the corner. You tell her why you are in this tower, not the version you told yourself in February when you called the number. The real version, the one where you did not know how to stay, where you got on a road and pointed it at something far enough away that you could not see home from it. Delilah listens to all of it without speaking. When you finish, the radio holds a silence that feels different from ordinary radio silence. Fuller, like something has been set down in the space between you. She says you left her. You say yes. She says you left her while she was sick. The words sit in the air. You do not argue with them because they are accurate. She says, I'm not judging you, Henry. I'm just saying it back so you can hear what it sounds like. A few nights later, she calls you. Not the usual check-in. Late. The forest dark outside both towers. She says, can I tell you something? You say yes. She tells you about Javier. He was her partner. Years of him. She cared about him. That is not in question. The question was always whether she could be the person he needed. He needed her to stay, to be present, to choose him the way you choose something you are not going to keep reconsidering. She kept not doing that, not because she did not want to, because every time it came to the moment of choosing, she found another reason. A season coming, a job somewhere else, something that was easier than the thing he was asking. She says, I got good at leaving before it got to that point, before I had to name it. 3 summers in a tower is what that looks like from the outside. You say you could still call him. She is quiet for a moment. She says, he stopped asking a long time ago, Henry. A few days after that you ask her about Brian Goodwin. You have been carrying the name since day 2. The backpack half buried in leaves. The child's handwriting on the tag. You have marked it on the map and left it and not said anything more because she told you to mark it and leave it, and her voice when she said it made it clear that was the whole sentence. But you ask now because you are asking things now, because something has opened between you that was not open before. She is quiet for a long time. Then she tells you, Ned Goodwin. He was a lookout here before you, stationed at 2 Forks, the same tower, the same sector. He brought his son Brian with him that summer, against regulations, against everything the Forest Service permits. A kid out here alone with his father, no record of it, no permission granted. Delilah knew. She talked to Brian on the radio, more than she talked to Ned, she says. She liked the kid. He was curious about everything, the birds, the geology, the alidade, how fires start. She liked the way he asked questions, so she did not report it. You say you knew he was out there, and you did not say anything. She says, I liked the kid. The words land between you and sit there. You hear what is underneath them. The guilt that does not argue with itself, does not make excuses, just sits with what it is. You say what happened to him. She says, I don't know. Ned never came back. Brian never called again. I told myself they just left at the end of the season, that everything was fine. Her voice, when she says it, is the voice of someone who stopped telling themselves that a long time ago. You both sit with it. The backpack in the leaves. The child's name in the child's handwriting. The disposable camera sitting at the bottom of it like a question nobody has answered yet. After that, the conversations are different, not worse, not colder, but different. You are both carrying something now that the other one knows about, and the knowing changes the weight of it. There is more room in the silences, more honesty in the jokes. You talk about Julia sometimes. Small things, not the hard parts, just the parts that want to be said. The way she named the dog, the October wedding and the rain. The way she would draw at the kitchen table with her coffee going cold beside her. Delilah listens the way a good lookout watches a valley, taking in everything, missing nothing, not flinching at what she sees. The summer deepens. The heat gets serious. Midday the air above the valleys shimmers. The fire risk goes up on the board from moderate to high. You spend more time at the alidade. You radio Delilah more often with coordinates and bearing readings. And then one evening, on the far north edge of your sector, you see something. Not smoke, not an animal moving between the trees. A light, small and still, half a mile out, sitting between two dark ridgelines. Too steady for a campfire. Too contained, like something electrical. Something that is supposed to be there and is not supposed to be there at the same time. You watch it through the binoculars for a long time. You radio Delilah. You tell her what you see. She checks her maps. She tells you there is nothing out there. No structures. No registered camps. No access roads within 2 miles of that position. The light does not move. Then it is gone. Between one pass of the binoculars and the next. Present and then not. No fade, just gone. You lower the binoculars. You stand at the window for a long time after. 2 nights later, you pick up a transmission on a frequency you are not supposed to be receiving. Your radio is set to the Forest Service bands. Whatever this is, it is not on a Forest Service band. A voice, faint, broken by static, speaking in short bursts. Not words you can make out, not a conversation. Just a voice transmitting the way someone transmits when they are checking if a line is open, checking if someone is listening. You hold the radio very still. You try to adjust the dial. The voice comes and goes, and then disappears completely. You radio Delilah. She does not say it is nothing. That is the thing you notice. She does not reach for an easy answer. She just says, write down the frequency and the time. You write it down. A week after the transmission, in the hour before dark, when the shadows have merged and the forest is one color. You see the figure again. South Ridge, standing in the gap between two trees where the sky shows through. Completely still. The same stillness as day one. The same quality of patience that does not belong to something that is just passing through. You do not raise your hand this time. You watch it. It faces the direction of the tower, which amounts to the same thing as watching you. You reach for the radio slowly without looking away. You key it. You say, Delilah. She says, yeah. You say, the figure is back, South Ridge. She says, stay on them. Do not look away. You do not look away. The figure does not move for 3 full minutes. You count them. The forest darkens around it. The sky behind it goes from gray to black. Then it is gone. Gone the way things go when the dark finally takes them, not in a moment, but in the accumulation of moments until you realize they are no longer there. You radio Delilah. You tell her it is gone. She says, you okay? You say, yeah. She says, I don't think you are. You say, probably not. She says, that's more honest. July comes in hot and dry. The fireboard goes from high to extreme. Every day, you scan the valleys, watching for the first thread of smoke. That means something has started. The forest is dry down to its roots. Everything in it has been waiting for the right spark. The conversations with Delilah keep going. Daily, sometimes hourly when the heat builds, and you are both watching the same horizon from different towers. She tells you things she has not told anyone out here. You tell her things you have not said out loud since New Haven. The radio between you becomes the most honest place in your life. More honest than the apartment was at the end. More honest than anything you have said to yourself on the long drive west. Your wedding ring sits on the desk. The forest sits around the tower, and somewhere in it, something watches. Something that has been watching since day one, since the tower was ransacked, since the figure first appeared on the ridge with its flashlight pointed at you. Something patient and unhurried that has been moving around the edges of your summer the way a fire moves through grass, slowly at first, below the surface, and then all at once. The alidade turns slowly under your hands. You watch the ridgelines. You watch the valleys. You watch the places between things where the light goes wrong. Something is coming. You do not know yet what it is. Day 76. It comes the way things come in the forest, without announcement, without warning. Morning, the heat is already serious when you leave the tower. The fireboard reads extreme. The sky has the particular flat white quality it gets when the air is too dry and too still. Everything waiting. You head north. You have been thinking about the light for a week. The frequency. The figure on the south ridge. You have been careful about it, logging coordinates, marking bearings, reporting to Delilah, and letting the information sit. But something has shifted. The forest is too dry. The summer is almost over. If something is happening out here, you want to know what it is before the season ends and everyone goes home. The north slope is steep and quiet. You move through it the way you have learned to move through this forest, slowly, watching the spaces between the trees. The birds are subdued in the heat. The usual sounds are muffled. You find the first sign on the slope above the drainage. The camp, if you can call it that, is tucked into a fold in the terrain 30 yards further up. Not a camp so much as a station. A tarp strung between 2 pines for weather cover. Beneath it, equipment cases, a folding table, tangled wire runs going off into the trees in 2 directions. A battery pack, tools. A small device you do not immediately recognize, rectangular, black, with a single blinking green light. You stop at the edge of the tarp and look at all of it. Someone has been here a long time. You step under the tarp. You open the nearest equipment case. Cables, a second battery, mounting hardware for cameras, the brackets still attached to the bracket plates. On the folding table, held down by a rock, is a clipboard. You pick it up. The top sheet is a log, handwritten, dates going back 40 days, almost to the start of the season. 2 columns. The left column, time stamps. The right column, notes, short, clipped. The handwriting of someone who has been writing the same kind of thing for a long time. You read. The notes are observational. Movement, activity, radio transmission frequency and duration. You read the column, and your stomach does something you do not name. These are notes about you. Dates, times, positions. He was there on May 15, saw the cache, left at 15:45. He was there on June 3, hiked South Trail. Duration 2 hours 12 minutes. There is a second sheet beneath. 2 columns again. This one labeled thoroughfare. This one is about Delilah. You set the clipboard down. The blow comes from behind, sudden and total, the kind of darkness that is not sleep, just gone. When you come back, everything is dark. You are on your side. Your cheek is against metal. The air smells of rust and old canvas and something chemical. Your head rings. You put your hand out and touch a wall close on your right. You put your hand out the other way and touch a wall close on your left. You are in a box. You lie still for a moment and let your skull settle. Then you take stock. Your pack is gone. Your boots are still on. Your radio is gone, taken, along with everything you were carrying. No Delilah. No voice in the dark. Just the box and the sound of your own breathing. You feel along the walls. You feel the door. The seam is there, handle hardware on the outside. Nothing to grip from within. You press your shoulder against it. It does not give. You work at the lower corner with your fingers. There is a gap there, small, where the metal does not meet flush. Your fingers ache. The dark is total. You do not stop. Time passes in the way time passes, when there is no light and no sound, and no one on the other end of anything. The corner gives enough to get leverage. You press with your whole weight. Something bends, something gives. The door swings. Light, enormous, shocking light. You sit in the doorway with your eyes shut for a moment, letting them adjust. The forest around you is exactly the forest. Same trees, same afternoon heat. Someone has locked you in a supply cache on the north slope and then walked away. You stand. Your head aches. Your hands are shaking slightly. Adrenaline leaving your system the way adrenaline leaves, slowly and all at once. No pack, no radio. The silence where Delilah's voice should be is its own specific thing. You find your radio on the ground 15 feet from the cache. Set down, not thrown. Left deliberately, the way you leave something you want someone to find. You pick it up. You key it. Delilah's voice comes through immediately. She says, "Henry, where are you?" Her voice is controlled and level, and underneath the control, there is something else. You tell her you are out. You tell her they took the pack. You tell her about the radio. She says, "Are you hurt?" You check. A lump on the back of your head, tender, already going tight. You tell her you are okay. She says, "Come back to the tower. Right now." You tell her there is something you need to check first. She says, "Henry." You tell her 20 minutes. She does not say yes, and she does not say no. She stays on the radio. The cache sits on a platform 20 meters from the station. You go back to the tarp. The clipboard is on the ground where you dropped it when you fell. You pick it up. You read it more carefully now, standing in the light, with your head aching. and the afternoon around you going hot and still. The notes are thorough, professional, more than 40 days of observation, more than observation, analysis. Communication patterns, activity ranges, isolation indicators. This is the work of someone who has been doing this very carefully for a very long time. The bottom of the second page has a name. Not yours, not Delilah's. N. Goodwin. You stand under the tarp with the clipboard in your hand, and the name in front of you, and the forest doing what forests do. You radio Delilah. She says, yeah. You tell her the name. The silence that follows is not the ordinary silence of a radio gap. She says, come back to the tower, Henry. You say, Delilah. She says, please. Day 77. You go to the Wapiti station. You have been past the gate twice since May. A padlock on a chain, a Forest Service sign so old the letters are fading, a road behind it that disappears into the trees. You marked it on the map. You did not go in. Today you go in. The padlock is heavy and sealed. You look at it for a moment. Then you use the bolt cutters from your pack. You have been carrying them since day 33, when the cache resupply included them, and you could not think of a reason not to. The chain drops. The gate swings. The road behind it is overgrown but passable. You follow it up through the timber for half a mile. It curves around the side of the ridge and opens into a clearing. You stop, the Wapiti Research Station, or what is left of it. It is more than you expected and less. 3 structures, a main building, a smaller outbuilding, a radio tower standing free in the corner of the clearing. The main building is locked, but the windows are unboarded. Government markings on the door, old and weather-worn. USFS Research Division, Project Wapiti. The outbuilding has no lock. The hasp is rusted open. You try the outbuilding first. Inside, shelving units, most of them empty. Folded cots stacked against one wall. A workbench with equipment brackets still bolted to it. On the lowest shelf, half hidden behind a folded tarp, a plastic case, the heavy-duty kind, latched and sealed against weather. You bring it out into the light and open it. Files, dozens of them, organized by year. You pull the first one. Field observation records. Dates from the early 1970s. Notes on wildlife movement, migration patterns, feeding behavior. Maps with hand-drawn annotation. A project that ran for 8 years and produced 8 binders of methodical, careful data. Project Wapiti was a wildlife study. You sit with that for a moment. You pull files from later years. The project wound down, funding cut, staff reassigned. The last active file is from 1981, After that, a gap. Then a single folder, separate from the others, tucked at the very back of the case. This one has no official header. The paper is different, not government forms, not pre-printed. Notebook paper. Spiral-bound pages torn out and gathered together. You open it. The handwriting is the same as the clipboard. This folder is about you, not the way the clipboard was, not just movement logs and timestamps. This is more background, history, names, employment records, personal details. Henry Sattler, New Haven, CT. Delilah Parnell, Chicago, IL. Both of you in here, reduced to facts on paper, held in a case in an abandoned building in a forest where no one was supposed to be. He has been thorough. He has been thorough for a long time. You sit with the folder in your hands, in the clearing, with the radio tower standing over you and the forest around you completely still. Delilah's voice comes through the radio. She says, "You found it." It is not a question. You tell her yes. She says, "What's in it?" You tell her all of it. The wildlife study, the gap, the notebook pages. You and her reduced to dates and coordinates. Julia in the margins. She is quiet. You say, "He has been watching us the whole summer." She says yes. You ask her why. She does not answer that. Not right away. You sit in the clearing and let the silence hold. The afternoon is very hot. The fire bored in your head reads extreme and has for days. Then she says, "Because of Brian." You say, "What does that mean?" She says, "It means what it means." You fold the notebook pages and put them in your pack. You close the plastic case. You look at the radio tower and the old government buildings around it, and the clearing that has been empty for 8 years, and then was not. Everything that has happened since day one has been Ned Goodwin. Not a government program, not a conspiracy. One man in the forest, watching you from a distance, moving through the same terrain you have been walking all summer. Patient, unhurried. He brought his son out here, and his son did not come home, and something in him has been unable to leave it behind. You are about to key the radio when you see it. North above the ridgeline. Not white smoke. Gray-brown smoke. The kind that means dry fuel and wind, and a fire that has already made up its mind about where it is going. The Wapiti fire. It is already large. You key the radio. You say her name. She says, "I see it." Her voice has changed. Not fear, Delilah's voice does not do fear that way. Focus. The same focus she had when she heard you key the radio after the silence. All of it pointed at one thing. She says, "That's coming this way." You say, "How fast?" She says, "Fast. With this heat, with this wind, It's fast, Henry. You look at the smoke. You look at the distance between it and you. You look at the distance between it and the towers, both towers, hers and yours. She says, get back to Two Forks. Right now, we'll figure out the rest from there. You fold the map. You start moving. Behind you, across the ridgeline, the smoke thickens and rises and spreads in the way smoke spreads when there is nothing left to stop it. The sky above it has gone the color it goes, the specific orange that means the forest is burning and the summer is ending, and there is no version of the next few days that looks like any of the days that came before. You move through the trees. The forest is quiet ahead of you. Behind you, it is not. Day 78. The fire is north and moving. You can see the smoke from the tower, not a thread now, not a column. A wall. The whole northern skyline the color of something that has made up its mind. Delilah is on the radio at first light. She says the Forest Service is monitoring. No evacuation order yet. But the word yet is doing a lot of work. She says it the way she says things she does not want to say, carefully, the edges of it precise. You look at the map. You look at the fireboard. You look at the cave marked in pencil at the edge of your sector. Cave 452. The locked gate from day 1. The new padlock on the old iron in a place that had no reason for a new padlock. You have been circling it all summer. You tell Delilah where you are going. She is quiet for a moment. Then she says, be careful. She does not tell you not to go. The trail to cave 452 cuts south off the main route, through a section of old growth where the trees are thick enough that the smoke haze above you is dimmed to a general gray. The air smells of it even down here, has smelled of it for 2 days. You have stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing things that are always there. The cave entrance is set into a rock face at the base of a ridge. The iron gate is still there, old, the hinges gone dark with rust, the bars thick. The padlock on it is still new, still out of place. You use the bolt cutters. The padlock drops. The gate swings inward on its old hinges with a sound that carries in the rock. You go in. The cave opens up beyond the entrance. Your headlamp moves across the walls, limestone, old, water-carved. The ceiling high enough to stand under for most of it. The air is cool and still and smells of earth and something older than that. A rope is anchored to a bolt in the wall near the entrance. New hardware. The rope runs down into the dark of a drop at the back of the main chamber. A natural shaft going down into a lower level. Someone put this here. Someone who knew how to put it here. You follow the wall with your light and find the marks about 10 feet in. Small things left on the rock. A name scratched into the limestone in careful letters. Dates. A tally of something, days, or visits, or sightings. The marks of someone keeping track of a place they intended to come back to. The handwriting is a child's. You stand in the cave and understand that Brian Goodwin spent a long time in here. Not hiding, not lost. Here on purpose, the way children claim places completely and without asking permission. This was his. You find him at the bottom of the shaft. You go down the rope carefully, the headlamp picking out the walls of the drop as you descend. The lower chamber is smaller, the air colder. Your boots touch ground and you turn, and the light finds him in the corner. You stand very still. He is small. The years have done what years do in a place like this, cool and dry, removed from everything. He is still in his clothes. He is still wearing his boots. Beside him, a broken rope end, the original anchor above, failed or cut. The fall sudden and final. You do not go closer. You do not need to go closer. You stand in the lower chamber of cave 452 with the light on him and the weight of the summer settling into something that is not surprise. You have known, in the way you know things you have not let yourself know, since the day you found his backpack in the leaves. Brian Goodwin, a child, a summer that never ended for his father. You key the radio. You tell Delilah. She does not say anything for a long time. When she does speak, her voice is the voice of someone who has been carrying something for a long time and has just set it down in a place where it cannot be picked up again. She says, I know. The two words land in the cold of the cave and sit there. You climb back up. You are halfway to the cave entrance when you hear it. The gate, the sound of it closing. Then a different sound, metal on metal, a lock engaging. You reach the entrance in 3 strides and press your hands against the bars. The gate is locked. The bolt cutters are outside where you left them, on the rock beside the gate. Through the bars, the forest is exactly as you left it, trees, smoke haze, afternoon light. No one there. Whoever did it was gone before you reached the entrance. You radio Delilah. You tell her. She says his name, Ned. Not a question. You stand at the gate and look at the lock and the forest beyond it. And think about a man who has been in this forest for 5 summers carrying what he has been carrying, and who just locked you in the cave where his son died. Not to hurt you. You understand that. To stop you. To buy time. To do the only thing left he could think to do. You look for another way out. At the back of the upper chamber, behind the rope anchor, the ceiling rises into a natural chimney. A crack in the rock going up toward the surface, maybe 30 feet, maybe more. Wide enough. Barely. You go up the way you go up things when there is no other option. Hands and feet against opposite walls, pressure keeping you in place, moving slowly. The rock is cold. The crack narrows twice, and you breathe out and push through. The smoke smell gets stronger as you climb. Then light, not headlamp light. Daylight, gray-orange with smoke, coming down from above. You pull yourself out onto a rock shelf on the ridge above the cave entrance. You stand up. You are above the tree line, the forest spread out below you in every direction. To the north, the smoke is enormous. A brown-gray mass filling the sky from the ridgeline up, the fire invisible behind it, but present in everything, in the color of the light, in the smell of the air, in the way the birds have gone. You radio Delilah. She says you're out. You say I'm out. She says the evacuation order just came through. Day 79. The fire has moved in the night. It is southeast now, not just north. The Forest Service helicopters have been working the ridgelines since before dawn. The radio is full of coordinates and wind readings and suppression reports that do not sound like suppression is going well. Delilah says the order covers both towers, both lookouts. She says it the way she says the things she does not want to say. You tell her you need one more day. She says, Henry. You tell her there is a signal. You picked it up last night when the radio chatter cleared for an hour. A repeating transmission on a frequency just below the Forest Service bands. Short and regular. The same pattern every few minutes. Something broadcasting from somewhere in your sector. She is quiet. Then she says, find it, fast. The signal leads you east, down off the main ridge, through a section of terrain you have not walked all summer. A hollow between two rock outcrops, the ground dropping into a dense stand of spruce. The signal gets stronger as you descend. The bunker is set into the hillside. Not a cave built. Timber framing, a low roof barely above ground level, a door of heavy planks fitted into a frame. Completely invisible from above. From the trail, it looks like a section of hillside that has slumped and settled, the way hillsides do. The door is not locked. Inside, a cot, a propane lantern, shelves of supplies, enough for a season, maybe more, and the equipment. 3 monitors dead now, their screens dark. A radio transmitter, the source of the signal, still cycling through its automatic broadcast. Camera cables going out through the wall in a bundle, running back up toward the ridge. A logbook, handwritten, every page dense with dates and entries and coordinates. Ned Goodwin has been living in this hollow for 5 summers, watching, waiting for something he could not name. The tape is on the cot, a cassette, a small player beside it. Both of them set out in a way that is clearly intentional, left for someone who would come here looking, left by someone who knew they would not be here when that person arrived. You sit on the edge of the cot. You put the tape in the player. You press play. Ned Goodwin's voice fills the small space. It is the voice of an older man, careful, tired, the voice of someone who has been composing this for a long time and is finally, with some difficulty, saying it. He says, Brian found the cave the second week of that summer. He was always finding things, always going further than I told him to go. I should have gone with him more. I know that now. He went down on the rope. The anchor gave. He stops for a moment on the tape. You hear him breathe. He says, I found him the next morning. I told myself it was an accident. I told myself there was nothing I could have done. Both of those things are true. They do not help. I couldn't take him out of there. I couldn't face what taking him out of there would mean, the questions, the forms, the voice on the phone telling his mother. I locked the gate. I put a new lock on it. I told myself I would come back. He says, I came back every summer after that. I couldn't stay away and I couldn't go in. The two girls, I scared them off. I didn't hurt them. I needed them gone. When you came, I thought the same thing would work. It didn't. You kept looking. He says, I know what you found in that cave. I'm sorry it was you who found him. He was a good kid. He was curious about everything. The tape ends. You sit in the bunker with the player in your hands for a long time. Outside, the fire is moving. You key the radio. You tell her all of it. The tape, Ned's voice, what he said about Brian, the rope, the anchor, the morning he found him, the summers of coming back and not being able to go in and not being able to stay away. You tell her the girls are okay, that they were never in danger, just scared off, that everything that happened this summer was one man trying to keep a secret that was eating him alive. You tell her it was an accident, that Brian died in an accident, and Ned couldn't face it, and the rest of the summer. The tower ransacked, the transmissions, the clipboard, the cave. All of it was fear. Just fear. Delilah listens to all of it without speaking. When you finish, the radio holds a silence that is different from ordinary radio silence. You have heard this silence before the first time, the morning she asked you who Julia was. The silence of something being set down. She says, he was just a kid. You say yes. She says, I should have reported it. That first summer, I should have said something. You say you didn't know. She says, I knew enough. You do not argue with that. You let it sit the way she has always let your things sit, not dismissing it, just giving it the space it needs. The fire is in the trees to the southeast now. You can hear it, not the roar people describe, not yet, but a low, continuous sound like the forest clearing its throat. The air has gone thick. The light is orange all the way to the ground. Delilah says, "There's a helicopter coming to Thoroughfare. 20 minutes. You say, I can make it to the meadow by the service road. Half an hour. She says, Henry, the way she says your name. You say, what? She says, I'm not going to be here when you get out. You stand in the smoke orange light between the trees and hold the radio. She says, I'm already at the landing zone. The helicopter is 2 minutes out. She stops, starts again. I'm not good at the other version of this. You know that about me now. You say, I know that about you. She says, you should go back to Julia. Whatever that looks like now, you should go back. You say, I know. She says, Henry. You say, I know. She says, it was a good summer. You say it was. She says goodbye. You say goodbye. The radio goes quiet. Not dead, just quiet. The frequency still open. The static still there, just her voice no longer in it. You stand for a moment in the orange light. Then you fold the map. You put the radio on your belt. You start walking. The trail out is the same trail that brought you in. Same packed earth. Same switchbacks down through the timber. Same sky appearing and disappearing between the canopy. Not blue now. Not that specific altitude blue from the first day, but orange-gray. The sky of a forest in the last days of its summer. The heat builds in the backs of your legs, in your shoulders. The pack is lighter than it was in May. You have used most of what you carried in. You think about Julia. Not the hard parts, not the doctor's office, not the furniture moved in the dark. The way she held her coffee mug with both hands. The face she made when something surprised her. The way she laughed at her own jokes before she finished telling them. You let yourself think about it. You do not look away from it. The trees thin. The canopy opens. The trail descends toward the service road, and you can see the end of it, a gap in the tree-line, gray daylight, the shape of the world outside the forest. Behind you, somewhere in the smoke, the tower stands empty. The alidade in the center of the room, pointing at nothing. The wedding rings still on the desk. You did not bring it. You left it where it was. The forest steps back. The road opens in front of you. You walk out. The summer is over.